What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Flying Knee KO podcast, episode number 6. My name is Victor Vasquez, and in today's episode, we're going to be going over UFC 251, which was this past Saturday, and what a main card it was. I mean, looking at that main card on paper, it was so stacked. I mean, compared to any other card in 2020, this for sure was the most stacked card. But, I mean, did it live up to the hype? It had a lot of great finishes. It had finishes by Amanda Ribas getting a quick submission armbar, to be exact, on Paige Van Zandt. You had Petr Yan getting a finish over Jose Aldo to become the new bantamweight champion. And then you had a technical matchup between Max Holloway and the defending champion now, Alexander Volkanovski. And what a hell of a 5 rounds that was between those two featherweights. And then you had the main event, which obviously had so much hype coming into it. You know, obviously it's so tough to meet those kind of expectations for Masvidal and Usman, but they did their best. But it was a great fight card overall. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed watching every single one of those fights. I even watched some of the early prelims. But it was a great time to watch those fights. It was just great to see Masvidal back in the cage again. It had been a few months. He hasn't fought since about November of last year when he took on Nate Diaz for the BMF title. But it was good to see him back, but you could obviously see that it was going to be a tough challenge ahead of him as he took on the defending welterweight champion, Kamaru Usman. And so, we've already kind of discussed a little bit about, that kind of my general thoughts of UFC 251. So let's go ahead and jump in to the first segment, in which we cover the hot news of this past Saturday night's events. And this segment is actually called...
I'm here with the winner, Derek Lewis. Derek, why'd you take your pants off? My balls was hot. I understand.
Derek Lewis giving us this next segment, My Balls Was Hot, where we kind of cover some of the hot news that just came out of this past weekend's fights. And to me, you can't go wrong with talking about Kamaru Usman. What more can you say about this guy? I mean, he's already defended his welterweight title twice against two guys that he had so much bad blood over the past couple of years. I mean, the man straight up deals with emotion better than most fighters that I've seen since I've been watching this sport of MMA. In his past fight, this past December, 6 months ago, he faced off against Colby Covington, a welterweight that was talking trash, obviously he had the MAGA hat on. All he does and what enjoyed doing actually was instigating, just getting under people's skins. And it was working. He had legit wins over RDA. He had it over Maya. He had wins over Robbie Lawler, the former welterweight champion. So, I mean, it was incredible to see how he was getting under people's skin. But he couldn't do it against Kamaru Usman. And Usman ended up getting the TKO finish against Colby Covington this past December. And then after that, you have Jorge Masvidal. And Masvidal was just on a skyrocket of a run in 2019 after knocking out Darren Till, getting the 5-second KO over Ben Askren, then beating Nate Diaz. Even though it was stopped by the doctor, he was just putting a bunch of damage and hurting Nate Diaz, showing so much violence. And so now you started feeling, okay, if Jorge gets an opportunity at the welterweight title, he's going to have to face off against Kamaru Usman, because I don't see anybody taking that belt away. And you saw it, I think it was during the week of the Super Bowl. They got caught in an altercation during media day for the Super Bowl, and these guys you can see the seeds being planted of the promo that was going to be made between these two guys. And oh man, I was pumped. I was ready to see that matchup. Unfortunately, kind of giving you guys the backside of it, they didn't set up that matchup. Apparently there was, negotiation talks that broke down between Jorge Masvidal and the UFC. So they ended up going with Gilbert Burns, a rising star in the welterweight division, but then he ended up getting COVID. So unfortunate for him. He did not get a chance to fight for the title. Hopefully he is doing a lot better. But Masvidal stepped in on 6 days' notice, talking trash. All those months went by, and both guys still talking trash. And I don't know how you could do it with Kamaru Usman again. He gets into the cage, and it's like nothing. You don't see any type of emotion in his face. He just deals with it so well. Imagine having to deal with 6 months of bad blood, 6 months of trash talk against a guy that you think, this hype train is going to have to stop. And I mean, what better way than getting a unanimous decision? He got some 50-45s from the judges, and he just he did everything he needed to do this past Saturday night to get a victory over Jorge Masvidal. Now, Masvidal, again, you got to give the guy credit. He cut 20 pounds in 6 days after he accepted that fight. And not only did he have to cut those, 20 pounds, he still had to do his media obligations. Yes, they're virtual, but I mean, still, he still had to do that as well. And then obviously prepare for the opponent that was Kamaru Usman. Now, you do give credit to Jorge Masvidal for stepping up. He obviously increased the pay-per-view buys. I believe they just announced it today that the pay-per-view actually sold 1.3 million buys, which is actually the highest since 2018. And that was between Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. So unbelievable the amount of pay-per-view buys. And you got to give a bunch of credit to Masvidal for stepping up. But you also got to give credit to Kamaru Usman because, I mean, for about 2 months, he was preparing for his former teammate Gilbert Burns. They used to train together. That's who his mindset was on. He had a specific game plan for that. And then boom, 6 days out of fight night, immediately gets switched to a striker, a guy that loves violence in Jorge Masvidal. And so Usman immediately had to kind of switch up his thinking, adapt to the situation. And his coaching staff helped him out a lot. Trevor Whitman got him really prepared. And they knew, okay, well, this is a different type of opponent, but he felt even more confident. He knew that, okay, this guy, Masvidal, doesn't have the type of wrestling that I have. And so you saw it on Saturday night. I mean, he just tried to punish Masvidal so much to the body. Every time they clinched up against the cage, you could just see the body shots just striking at the same spot for Usman. And then he just, again, was doing the right things to get him the victory. A lot of people might, complain, hey, this isn't the type of matchup I want to see. I want to see violence. That's why I want to tune in to watch Masvidal, but that's not Usman's game. Usman is all about domination, using his wrestling, his strength, and then, just making sure that you're not getting caught. And so he did it just that. He took down Masvidal about 3 times throughout the fight. I was very surprised that Masvidal was actually able to stay up on his feet so many times. He stuffed like about 10 takedown attempts by Kamaru Usman. But again, gotta give credit to both guys. Kamaru Usman ends up getting the unanimous decision over Jorge Masvidal, ends up stopping the hype train, stops the 3-fight win streak that Masvidal was on. And now that's 2 title defenses for Kamaru Usman. So, it's to me, a lot of people will think that it was like a boring fight. I loved it. I personally kind of was hoping that Jorge Masvidal could pull it off just because of the story aspect. I mean, he was just a guy that has been in the game for 16 to 17 years and being, already such a veteran in the game and barely getting your first title opportunity against a guy like Kamaru Usman coming in almost like 13, 14 years in the game. I mean, it would have been a great story to see and a great visual, obviously, if he would have won. But Kamaru Usman had other plans, and I don't see anybody trying to challenge him to try to take that belt away from him. Another highlight that I did want to mention from the hot news segment here is the co-main event, which ended up being Alexander Volkanovski against Max Holloway, an immediate rematch for the featherweight title. And again, the first fight, it's very close. A lot of people had it for Max Holloway. I would say very few. I personally had it Alexander Volkanovski in their first matchup, which was this last December. I thought he had it maybe 4-1, 3-2, I can see it as well. But in this one, oh my goodness, another 25 minutes of technical brilliance by these two guys. This time it was the complete opposite. It's almost like both fighters mirrored each other from the previous fight. In the first fight, Volkanovski came off as, the guy that was just unpredictable. He was landing so many leg kicks, taking out I believe it was the left leg of Max Holloway, forcing him to stance switch maybe when he didn't want to. And then you could just see Volkanovski coming off a lot more aggressive, a lot more assertive, trying to control the octagon. And this one, this past Saturday at UFC 251, Max Holloway was the one coming out more aggressive. He's the one throwing the leg kicks now. He's the one kind of leading the dance between Volkanovski. Max kind of caught Alex off guard. It took him a little bit to figure out, okay, this guy's being a little bit more aggressive. Now I got to kind of convert into a little counter punch, try to see if I can land a few shots, kind of get my respect from Max. And I was very surprised. So, I had it personally. I had it Max 3-2 in this past Saturday's fight, and it ended up going the other way. So Alexander Volkanovski ended up getting the decision at the end of the 5th round. They all judges, actually not all judges, I apologize. It ended up being a split decision with one judge going towards Max Holloway and two of the judges going for Alexander Volkanovski. So Volkanovski ended up pulling off back-to-back victories over Max Holloway. Now this one was just as like the first one. They were so razor close that you just didn't know which way it could go. To me, I felt like Max took over the first 2 rounds. Alex took over for sure the 4th and the 5th. It's that 3rd round that people are going to rewatch and determine, okay, who really won that round? Was it Alex or was it Max? To me, I felt in that 3rd round, Max was kind of throwing a little bit more, mixing up his offense. And that was at the point maybe late in that 3rd round where Alex was starting to heat up. He started to feel, okay, finding my rhythm now. But again, one heck of a fight between these two guys. That's already 10 rounds straight that they've been in the cage. And you just, after both, people are just left confused thinking, who really won those fights? How many times do we have to rewatch to see, okay, this guy won this round and this guy won that round? It's unbelievable. To me, I love those type of matchups. Obviously, it's tough to see Max lose back-to-back times. I'm really curious to see where Max goes from here. He seems to, again, the weight cut to 145 doesn't seem to affect him that much anymore. Not like a few years ago where he had to drop out a few times, and you could see that it was really hurting his body a lot. But now, after he made weight against Brian Ortega, facing off against Frankie Edgar, and now facing Volkanovski twice, he has mastered this weight cut. And to me, I'm down for a 3rd fight. A lot of people will be like, well, Alex already beat him twice. But, I mean, both times were not convincing. The first fight, to me, yeah, that was probably the most convincing for Alex. To me, again, I'm going to probably sound like a broken record. I felt like Max won at UFC 251. I thought he had it 3 rounds to 2. Instead, they went towards Alex, and he ended up retaining the featherweight championship. So I'm down for a 3rd fight. Now, I'm not expecting it to be immediately, nor does Max deserve it to be an immediate rematch again. I would like to see Max face off against a few other contenders in the featherweight division. And we're going to be discussing who we think is next for Alex as well in a later segment. All right, guys, we went through the hot news of UFC 251. Now I want to focus in on a fight that ended up being my personal favorite in the segment that I like to call...
Bang, man! I want to do that, man. I do.
Let Me Bang Bro by Julian Lane. This is where we end up choosing one of the fights that was just great on the main card or the prelims as well. Whichever fight was just like a barn burner, back and forth. And to me, I had to go to the main card for the 2 ladies that contributed a great fight, 3-round fight to be exact, and that's Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade. Oh, I mean, first fight, if you guys don't remember, Andrade ended up getting the victory. It only ended up lasting about 2 rounds, I believe. Rose Namajunas was dominating those 2 rounds, and then she ends up trying to go for a submission. Jessica Andrade ends up picking her up and slamming her on her head. Luckily for her, she did not get any serious injury, but she did get knocked out. Jessica Andrade ended up winning the strawweight title off of that matchup. But now, both ladies, without the strawweight title, trying to fight for contention to get a chance to fight Zhang Weili again for the championship. And what a fight it was. Again, only 3 rounds, but both ladies were just working their way to just try to crack each other as best as they could. Rose was just so damn technical. I mean, she always looks... she makes it really look easy in the striking department. I mean, the way she just times when the perfect opportunity is to throw her jab to a nice little check hook. I mean, it's just beautiful to watch. I mean, Michael Bisping and John Anik were just complimenting her throughout the fight. I mean, it's just... it's always so awesome to see when an athlete can make something look so easy. And that's exactly what she was doing. But credit to Jessica Andrade as well. She implemented a lot of more head movement, tried to get out of the range of Rose Namajunas. But, even without staying in a static spot, Rose was still finding her spots. Nice little jabs, right hooks, left hands. It was just beautiful. The first 2 rounds, again, I gave it to Rose Namajunas. She was just landing a lot more crisp shots. And Jessica was just, again, struggling to find herself, find a rhythm. But in that 3rd round, Jessica started landing some shots. She ended up landing a sick right hand to the left side of Rose and ended up swelling her under her left eye, actually. It just looked like a lot of damage that she was taking. And that wasn't it in that last round. More power shots ended up landing for Jessica Andrade. And it started getting a little bit tense because you could see that Rose started slowing down as she ate shot after shot after shot. But she managed to get through to the end of the bell, the third round. And then Rose ended up taking that decision against Jessica Andrade. I thought it was actually a unanimous decision, but two rounds to one. But one judge actually ended up giving it to Andrade. So ended up being a split decision, still in favor of Rose Namajunas. But again, both ladies put on a great show, back and forth, both taking their best shots, neither one dropping to the canvas. And I just loved it. It was a great fight. If you guys have a chance, go back to ESPN Plus. Whenever this pay-per-view becomes available, check out that fight because it was the fight of the night for me in the strawweight division. I mean, Jessica's always scary because she has that punching power to turn the lights off of any strawweight in that division. But again, Rose managed not to get clipped with anything dangerous. She absorbed a lot of damage, but and she showed it on her face, but she ended up getting the victory, so I'm pretty sure it felt that much sweeter. So congratulations to Rose Namajunas, and we'll see what happens for the future between these two ladies. All right, guys, we've got through this 2 segments already. Let's go into the third one where we discuss a fighter that we weren't really surprised by their performance in the segment that I like to call...
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Nate Diaz is not surprised, and I was not surprised of a specific fighter that fought at UFC 251, and that man was actually Petr Yan. That's right, Petr Yan. I was not surprised him finishing Jose Aldo. Now, I was not predicting that he was going to finish Aldo. I was just anticipating, you know what? Between Jose Aldo and Petr Yan, I knew the ability that Petr Yan had, and I knew he had the chance to get that victory and get his first chance to be crowned bantamweight champion. And my goodness, this guy he is going to be a big problem for the bantamweight division. It was actually, this matchup was actually a hell of a matchup. It wasn't anything quick. Petr Yan, Jose Aldo went back and forth. I mean, Aldo started off really well, landing some vicious leg kicks, just like the classic Aldo, just landing those leg kicks that end up, making fighters switch stances. But Petr Yan just wore that damage well on his leg. He just didn't let Aldo just get him to move to where he wanted to. Didn't let him stance switch when he didn't want to. Nope. All he did was absorb those kicks, and he kept coming. And then, again, Yan landing some beautiful bombs. And it just looked like, oh, man, I mean, if Aldo keeps taking this damage and these hits, I mean, he's going to go down eventually. But Aldo with some great head movement, dodged a few dangerous ones in the first 2 rounds. He did get clipped by a few, but, I mean, Aldo, again, looking like that vintage Aldo that dominated the featherweight division. And then the third and the fourth round came up, and all those strikes that were landed, all those strikes that were absorbed by Aldo started adding up. That by the third and fourth round, Yan was in complete control. He can feel the rhythm. He had a sick pace that did not change from the first round all the way to the 5th. And then in the 5th round is where it all changed. And as soon as the round started, a 1-2 combination, beautiful by Yan, ends up dropping Aldo against the cage. And that was the beginning of the end. Yan ended up pummeling Aldo for about 2.5 to 3 minutes. A lot of people were complaining, saying, hey, this fight should have been stopped. Aldo was taking too much damage. To me, I completely understand why people didn't want to see Aldo take that much damage. But again, the fighters are supposed to respond to the referees whenever they get asked for a question. So the referee asked, defend yourself. I guess not a question, but a statement. Hey, Aldo, defend yourself. And that's what he would do. He'd lift his hands up, kind of protect his head. And that's all he could do. Or he just says, try to escape, defend yourself. And he would try to move around, but Yan was in full mount on Aldo. He had nowhere to go. And again, it was just a pummeling by Yan. And just like his nickname is, he showed him no mercy. As Petr Yan ended up hammer fisting until the referee had no other choice but to stop the fight and end the punishment. My goodness, Petr Yan, only 28 years of age, and he is now the bantamweight champion after he was vacated by Henry Cejudo. But what a crazy fight. This one actually was runner-up for the Let Me Bang Bro segment, but ended up getting a finish by Yan. So I ended up wanting to put him here because I want everybody to kind of notice that this guy is this guy is going to be a problem in this bantamweight division because his ability to just absorb shots. Because I'm not going to lie, it wasn't all one-sided. Jose Aldo just did really good. Again, throwing some vicious leg kicks, landing some great hooks on Petr Yan, but again, unfazed. He absorbed them, he took them, and he kept going forward, trying to find his spots, and he ended up finding it with that 1-2 combination. But, oh man, No Mercy is just looking to get better and better in his MMA career, and I cannot wait to see what is in his future for his first title defense. All right, from talking about the person that we were not surprised by at UFC 251, let's go ahead and discuss somebody that we were surprised of, or kind of just want to shine the spotlight on them in this segment that I like to call...
Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that? You know damn well who I am. Who the fuck is that?
Who the F is that guy? Said by Conor McGregor at UFC 205 and MSG. And, in this segment, it's actually not a guy, it's a girl. And it's actually Amanda Ribas from Brazil in the strawweight division. She actually ended up opening the main card for UFC 251. Ended up taking on a big name, Paige VanZant. Now, a lot of fans already knew that Paige VanZant was on the last fight of her UFC contract. So discussions were made about, okay, if she gets a victory, is she going to try to renegotiate, or is she going to try to, walk away from the UFC? Well, Amanda didn't do any favors for Paige VanZant as she ended up getting the victory in less than 2 minutes with an armbar submission. Ribas was a savage as she controlled every moment of those 2 minutes in that first round. She just looked way more prepared. You could just see it. Paige VanZant, as soon as she came out, during her walkout, even the commentary team mentioned it. She seemed a little bit emotional, like more emotional than usual. I don't know if it's because she knew that this might be the last time she's fighting under the UFC or what it was, but it could have played a factor. And that's something that was a great point brought up by John Anik and Michael Bisping. But again, let's talk about Ribas. She just seemed excited to make her first appearance on a pay-per-view main card, and she couldn't have done better than getting a finish over one of women's MMA's top names in Paige VanZant. Again, she just got into that perfect position. She ended up getting a takedown on Paige VanZant, saw an opportunity to get the arm, and she did. And Paige VanZant had an opportunity to roll over, but she could not get to that point. Amanda Ribas ended up making her tap, and that was all she wrote. So Amanda Ribas gets a clutch victory in the strawweight division. She was actually ranked 15th in the strawweight division, so hopefully this will move her up a few spots. Even after the fight was over, she's a savage in the cage, but outside the cage, she just showed so much energy. After she was interviewing with John Anik, she looks like she's ready for the moment, and it's definitely somebody you got to look out for at future fight nights or pay-per-views. One interesting note, though, is that she actually mentioned that she would be moving up to flyweight in order to not have to cut weight from strawweight. So it should be very interesting to see what happens to that. If she ends up moving over to the flyweight division, where is she going to rank, or who are they going to give her? But I'm all for it. Amanda Ribas is another name you guys should look out for. Hopefully she gets back into the cage soon. She left unscathed, really, like that after that 2-minute victory with that armbar submission. So I can't wait to see her back in the octagon to face off against somebody in the flyweight division. All right, everybody, that's already 4 segments. Let's jump into the final one. This segment, I like to kind of fantasy book. I like to choose what's next for the winners. I don't like to predict who's going to win because I always get it wrong. So in this segment, we'll go ahead and predict what's next for these fighters as the year goes on in the segment that I like to call...
So I said I'd knock him out in the 4th round, and I knocked him out in the 4th round. You can call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
Mystic Mac predicting these things. That's exactly what I'm going to do here. Let's go ahead and just predict for the main card winners. So let's go down the line. We'll start with Amanda Ribas, who we just discussed in the prior segment. Again, she said she's moving up to flyweight. So I'd be very interested to see if they give her a ranked opponent immediately or try to test the waters a little bit and have somebody unranked and try to see how she does. To me, personally, I want to see her against somebody ranked. So I would choose number 15th ranked in the flyweight division, Molly McCann. Molly McCann actually ended up fighting a few months ago. So I'd be very interested to see Amanda Ribas take on Molly McCann to see how she does in her new weight class. Obviously, it's going to take some time to get used to it. Obviously, moving up in weight isn't just, increasing your body weight. It's really kind of defining your body and trying to make sure you have the right muscle in that division, but not too much as well. That way you can keep your weapons. But Amanda Ribas hopefully can try to get a matchup soon in the flyweight division to start improving and try to get used to the flyweight division. Next in line is Rose Namajunas. She ended up getting a victory, split decision over Jessica Andrade. To me, this was a number one contender fight between Rose and Jessica Andrade, and Rose ended up coming up victorious. So to me, it's got to be Zhang Weili, and I cannot wait for that epic main event to start. I mean, Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk was amazing. Fight of the year for me already. I'm voting it in. I know that there's still 6 more months of UFC fights planned, but to me, I don't see anything competing with Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk unless, they set up Rose versus Zhang Weili, because again, I feel like it's going to be such a technical matchup. Zhang Weili, just straight power. She's a savage. But Rose is sometimes hard to hit. She's very technical, moves so elegantly. She has a great ground game. So I cannot wait to see that matchup between those two. And it has to be the next fight that Dana White and the UFC plan. I mean, Zhang Weili already in training. So I would be surprised if they don't give it to Rose. Again, 2 strikers that are going to be toe-to-toe in the cage and just put on an amazing show. I'm all for it. I don't know who's going to come on top, but just know that I want to see this matchup, and I'm hoping that it happens later on this year. Again, it all depends on when Rose gets to come back. She did take a few, hits to the face from Jessica Andrade. Ended up swelling her under her left eye. So hopefully she's able to kind of get through that medical suspension, and then hopefully we get to see this great strawweight matchup, Zhang Weili against Rose Namajunas. All right, next is Petr Yan, the new bantamweight champion, now that Henry Cejudo is retired. And unless Henry Cejudo wants to come back, I don't think he will. I think he even tweeted out to Petr Yan after he won, says that he wouldn't last 2 rounds with Triple C. Very interesting. We'll see what happens with Henry Cejudo if he ever does come back. I'm hoping that he kind of just stays retired. It'd be a nice end to his story, but you never know. But again, to me, Petr Yan is actually the easiest choice. If you guys remember a couple episodes ago when Aljamain Sterling ended up getting a victory over Corey Sandhagen, I actually preferred the Funk Master to face off against Petr Yan. I feel like that was truly should have been either a number one contender match or fight for the vacant title. Instead, they gave it to Aldo, but Aldo could not come out victorious. So now this is the one option you got. UFC, they know what they have to do. It has to be the Funk Master versus No Mercy. Aljamain Sterling taking on Petr Yan for his first title defense in the bantamweight division, and what a heck of a matchup that would be. Again, I'm hyping myself up with these last 2. First, Zhang Weili and Rose. Now, Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan. I want to see it this year. Oh, man. I mean, and I love the fact that Yan knows who's next. He even said like that. He knows that after he got through Aldo, he knew Aljamain Sterling was waiting in the wings. But not only is he waiting, I mean, there's a whole lot of killers in that bantamweight division that are waiting to get a chance to fight for the title. So, cannot wait for these 2 savages in Funk Master Aljamain Sterling to take on against Petr No Mercy Yan. All right, co-main event winner Alexander Volkanovski ended up getting a split decision over Max Holloway. Again, my favorite line that Alex said, I think in an interview leading up to this second fight against Max, he said, "I'm a champion chasing contenders." And a beautiful line. I love that. And that's exactly what he wants, like that. He wants to take on the toughest contenders. Give it to Alex. Feed him those contenders so he can prove why he is the best in the world. And again, like I mentioned before, at this point for Max, he's already gotten back-to-back chances. He did not come out victorious, so now we're gonna have to see some new blood for the fighting for the title. And to me, I see that one matchup that's gonna be the number one contender for the featherweight division, and that's the Korean Zombie and T-City, Brian Ortega. For some reason, I feel like that fight should have been scheduled already, but apparently because of travel issues during this crazy quarantine time, they haven't been able to set up a date for the Korean Zombie to take on Brian Ortega. So I really don't know what the UFC is going to do. If they do end up booking that matchup, for sure the winner between the Zombie and T-City gets a chance to face off against Alexander Volkanovski. If they don't schedule that matchup, then I would love to see the Korean Zombie just get his shot at the featherweight title. And oh man, what savagery are we going to see? Because Korean Zombie is another guy that just does not stop coming. He's legit. His nickname it represents who he is. He's a guy that's just not going to stop coming. You're going to have to end this guy like Yair Rodriguez ended up with a no-look elbow. You're just going to have to completely shut his lights out. And that is no tough task. But again, to me, it's between T-City and Korean Zombie. Yes, there's Magomed Sharipov. Zabit Magomed Sharipov to be exact. And there's also Yair Rodriguez. But again, I feel like Korean Zombie and T-City should fight it out. Number one contender. And that person gets the chance to fight Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight title. All right, and we come to the last fight, which is the main event winner, Kamaru Usman. Ended up getting a unanimous, dominant decision over Jorge Masvidal. Congratulations to Kamaru Usman again. Even though people probably hate on it, they want to see more exciting fights, you cannot deny that this guy is dominant. Dominating Tyron Woodley last year to get the title. Beating two guys that he had bad blood with. And just, again, looking like he's going to be at top of the welterweight mountain for a long time. Actually, I also want to mention, props to these two guys also, Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal, for shaking hands afterward, man. They're almost like, shook hands. They knew both guys were game to fight. But what I loved is that, even after all that bad blood, they shook hands. They respected each other. They knew, okay, maybe down the line, we'll face off again like that. We don't need to talk trash anymore. We respect each other's games. Let's move on. And I love that. So again, props to Kamaru Usman. This guy is just, again, already got 2 title defenses. And he's trying to catch up to as many records as GSP had in the welterweight division. So to me, the next matchup for Kamaru Usman has to be the original matchup that was going to headline UFC 251 on Yas Island, and that is Gilbert Burns. That's right, his former teammate used to train with Kamaru Usman. I want to see this original matchup because, again, what intrigued me about it the first time was the fact that Gilbert Burns already knows the tendencies of Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman knows the tendencies of Gilbert Burns. How would that play out? Because Kamaru Usman knows Gilbert Burns and what his style is, would he try to take him down? Or is it going to be like a striking competition or a kickboxing competition similar to that of Colby Covington? I mean, I don't know how it's going to play out, but I want to see it. I know Ariel Helwani, if you guys listen to his podcast, he was mentioning that he wants Gilbert Burns to take on Leon Edwards for a number one contender, and then the winner gets to fight Kamaru. But again, I feel like Gilbert Burns, he had his shot. He was scheduled to main event, and all because of a positive test for coronavirus that kept him away from fighting for the title. I feel like he should just kind of fill in again and face off against Kamaru Usman. Again, similar to probably Petr Yan and Rose Namajunas. Well, actually, not Rose Namajunas. She actually ended up getting a bit injured from her face from all those shots from Jessica Andrade, but more like Petr Yan. I mean, they didn't take a lot of damage. Usman didn't get hit a lot by Masvidal, so I feel like if he wanted to make a quick turnaround, he could, and hopefully just hoping that Gilbert Burns gets healthy. I believe he's just asymptomatic, so it's nothing too serious, but hopefully if he's able to get through those coronavirus tests, get healthy, get a negative test, hopefully the UFC can try to schedule this matchup again, Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. All right, everybody. Well, that's all the time that I wanted to discuss about UFC 251. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. If you guys aren't busy, UFC is actually having 2 more events this week. I'm recording this on Monday, July 13th. So on July 15th, Wednesday, there's actually a fight night. It's actually highlighted by Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige. Featherweight matchup is going to be super nice. So if you guys are interested in watching that fight, make sure to check it out. It should be a very interesting main event. And on Saturday, there's another great main event that is actually going to be between 2 flyweights. It's Davison Figueiredo versus Joseph Benavidez. That's right, a rematch for the flyweight title that is still vacant. Figueiredo ended up getting the knockout victory over Benavidez, but he ended up missing weight, so he lost the opportunity to get the title. So now UFC booked these 2 guys to face off again, so it should be interesting to see if finally we get to see a flyweight champion come out. So we'll see what happens, guys. Again, if you're free, go ahead and watch those fights. I'll come back with episode 7 next week to talk about those 2 main events and any other things that might pop up All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I hope you guys stay safe out there. Don't do anything crazy. And thank you so much for listening. This is Victor Vasquez from the Flying Knee KO podcast.